think anyway, I got it.
What are you doing? Oh, I'm just sunning myself.
Yeah, I went through it. I said, and then I did something stupid. Actually, I went to see what they're selling.
I did not realize the hospital has 2 fixed wing airplanes plus a helicopter out here.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North Platte City Council meeting here on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Of course, it's 5:30 p.m. and we are here in the City Council chambers. You all will be happy to know that we're back to our regular meeting schedule. No more budget meetings till next year, unless something really crazy happens. Anyway. Okay, calling the meeting to order. We have an invocation. Mr. Reeker, would you be willing to give us an invocation, please?
Dear Lord, we thank you for loving us infinitely. Give us the grace to understand your love to the best of our ability and to strive to follow you in everything that we think and do and say, and especially tonight as we deliberate on the items before us, that our every thought, word, and action will bring you honor and praise and glory. We ask this through your name, O Lord, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Angie, roll call, please.
Here.
It's here.
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 Thank you. A current copy of the Open Meetings Act of the State of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers. Meeting procedure: the public may address specific agenda items at the pleasure of the mayor. If it recognized by the mayor, please identify yourself by stating your name and address, and please address the council through the mayor and limit your remarks. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired in a public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. The individual in violation will be declared out of order. Just want to take a moment to recognize that today is in fact Constitution Day. And we celebrate the most important documents of our nation's history, the Constitution. And it is 237 years old, I believe, 200 and something like that. Our founding fathers came together with a vision of freedom, justice, and opportunity for all. The Constitution is not just a historical artifact. It's a foundation that keeps our country strong, just, fair, and it's one of the documents that established the United States. It gives us the right to speak up, to vote, to make a difference in our communities, just like we do right here in North Platte every day. So as we honor Constitution Day, let's remember the power of we the people. It's not just a phrase, it's a call to action. Together we build a stronger community and a stronger America. Thank you for the indulgence. Consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any City Council member may, however, remove an item from consent by request. 1A, approve the minutes of September 3 and 10, 2024. 1B, place on file the Treasurer's Report for August 2024. C, approve the application by the North Platte J.C.'s for a special designated license on November 16, 2024 from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Dean Event Center, 501 East Walker Road for the Soup for Paws fundraiser. D, approve the application by Niobrara Valley Vineyards, LLC for a special designated license on December 14, 2024 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and December 15, 2024 from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Dean Event Center, 501 East Walker Road for a craft show. E, approve the collective bargaining agreement between the City of North Platte and the Public Service Union Nebraska Public Employees Local 251 for the term between October 1, 2024 through September 30, 2027.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Nisley. Calling the question on approving the consent agenda. I am not quite used to the new software. I'm not used to seeing the words moving when I look up there. So, okay, the consent agenda is approved. I'm not supposed to? Okay, all right. More improvements to come later. All right. Moving on to the regular agenda. We're going to do a little bit of reordering tonight. We're going to consider items number 2 and item number 3 at the end of the agenda because we have some contract things that we need to discuss surrounding those. Moving to item number 3A right now. Authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign the access and easement agreement with Midwest Land Development, LLC.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign the access and easement agreement with Midwest Land Development, LLC.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Lucas. Discussion. Bill, you want to give us a quick bit on what we're doing here?
So Midwest Land Development is the group that's developing the area off of East Phillip. And as part of their redevelopment contract, they have certain benchmarks that they need to meet. One of which is that they need to have all easement agreements in place and assigned to the city by the end of this week. So that's why obviously we've been in negotiations with them regarding the city's property in that area. And we've had several items in front of the council on that. But this particular item is merely to allow them to have this easement along the area where East Francis will be extended through the city's industrial park. And so it's to meet those benchmarks that are in the redevelopment contract for them.
Thank you. Anyone have comments or questions on item number 3A? Seeing none, calling the question on item 3A, please. 3A is approved. Item number 4, refer the City of North Platte, Nebraska Microtiff Blight and Substandard Study, LCCDC, as prepared by the City of North Platte Planning Department to the City of North Platte Planning Commission for public hearing to determine if the proposed area qualifies as blighted and substandard.
Mr. Mayor, I move to refer the City of North Platte, Nebraska Microtiff Blight Substandard Study LCCDC as prepared by the City of North Platte Planning Department to the City of North Platte Planning Commission for a public hearing to determine if the proposed area qualifies as blighted and substandard.
Second.
Motion by Lucas, second by Vols. Any discussion on item number 4? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 4. Item number 4 is passed. Item number 5, authorize the renewal of 2 interlocal agreements between the City of North Platte and Lincoln County for maintenance of roads and authorize the mayor to execute the documents for the city.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the approval of the renewal of the 2 interlocal agreements between the city and county for maintenance of roads and authorize the mayor to execute all documents for the city.
Second.
Motion by Flanders, second by Vols. Do we have any discussion on item number 5? Mr. Reeker.
How does this, Mr. Mayor, how does this impact Buffalo Bill Avenue over the river? Is that, who maintains that from, I think there's a city limit that ends there.
That's one of those that the city that maintains and removes snow and things on that portion, even though it's outside of city limits. And there's other portions that are inside of city limits that the county takes care of because it's contiguous with some of their roads.
Okay. Right. So in that situation, is the city obligated to take care of the bridges too? Maintain the bridges?
I believe so, yes. That was a joint city project back in the day, and so there's some other agreements besides that as far as some of the maintenance.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions or comments on item number 5? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 5, please. Item number 5 is passed. Item number 6, adopt the resolution setting user fees for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the resolution setting user fees for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols. Any discussion on item number 6? Mr. Lucas?
First, my apologies for the choking on water while you were speaking, Councilman Reeker. I'm okay though.
You survived?
Yeah, just water. I like the approach that was done on user fees. I really have no
concerns about it, but we're throwing everything but the kitchen sink deck for new housing. And we're gonna consider raising our building permit fees for housing. Not by a lot, but I think that deserves a little bit of discussion. I mean, I don't think there's any question that the time we spend and effort we spend costs more money to issue a building permit. So it's appropriate to bring it for discussion, but I just wonder if it's the right message.
So I guess I'll tell you, Ty, on all of the user fees, and the highlighted ones are the ones we're changing from the prior year. I asked all my department heads to go to their peer cities and kind of look at what they were doing as far as similar fees, and that's where we came up with these. And so they're not out of line with our peer cities, but I understand what you're saying. Of course, the only one of the user fees that we didn't have anyone to compare to was our price for our ride tickets for rides, and basically that's being driven mainly by the minimum wage going up to $13.50 the 1st of January, and running those rides, which that's probably the harder one as far as knowing what's the right fee to do on that one. So that was probably the tougher one for me, but that's how we came up with these fees, was asking our department heads to look at what our peer cities have for costs, and trying to be, we didn't want to be the highest, we didn't want to be the lowest, we want to be somewhere kind of in the middle on most of them. So
And I don't know how this group would feel about it, but if I motioned that we would leave the building permit fees for housing the same, would it cause any material effect on your budgeting or revenue processes?
as far as our revenue on the building permits, we kind of looked at the past couple years' history and went somewhere close to that, and expecting some increased permits, but I don't see it having much of an effect on that line item.
Well, and I want to be clear, and I think I'll propose an amended motion here so it can be discussed. I don't want this to be interpreted as taking away from the efforts or the costs that we're incurring at the city, because I know those are tremendous by the development staff, but I also see the level of incentive that we're putting forth. And so I know we're asking everybody in the community to do their part for housing, and so just think of that. So I guess with that, I just motion an amendment to the proposed schedule that would just simply remove the increase for this upcoming year on only the residential home building permits.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Lucas, second by Reeker, to leave the residential housing permit fees the same as they are in the existing year and not change them up, which would be on average a change of about $100, I would say, per item.
50 to 300, depending on the
50
size
to
of the
300,
house.
yeah, okay. Depending on the size of the house. Discussion on the motion.
I'll go ahead and start.
Why not?
Point well taken. And we are throwing everything that we have available, including the kitchen sink and housing. This is almost a point. I think all we're doing here is just covering. I don't think this is a huge revenue generator for us. And like you say, on a 1,500 square foot home up to a 4,000 square foot home, you're raising it $100 per house. So on a $1,800 bill or so it's minuscule. It's probably less than the cost of inflation. I don't know if that's going to have an adverse effect on the construction cost of the house, especially when we are incentivizing certain areas in there. This is a time where I don't think by raising the fees, it's going to deter anyone from purchasing a building permit on this. So I'm more inclined to keep the fees here, because I think when we took a wage increase 4.5% across the board, this might possibly cover a fraction of that. So I think cost of doing business is going up, and we have to reflect that in our user fees. So I'm more inclined to go with what Lane has in here, or our city heads, and go with that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Woods?
I had a real problem with this too, with raising the cost. I mean, I've talked with Lane about that department becoming self-sustaining, which would have to be done through these fees and whatnot. I think with some study, we could probably find some things we require builders to do that would shave the cost of building. So I would be okay with leaving these the same if we could do something like that. But, you know, I don't know.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Lucas?
Yep. I think I'd like to withdraw my amendment as I've listened to Councilman Vols and I've thought about this a little bit. I think the department heads have done the prudent thing by trying to cover our wage inflation. So I think I'll just ask to withdraw that. I appreciate the discussion on it.
Mr. Reeker, are you okay with withdrawing your second? Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay.
Okay. We're back.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Woods,
I
please
have
continue.
a couple that I would like to speak about.
Okay.
One is a really minor one. It's on the ticket prices for the rides and, excuse me. See,
Yeah, we all have to do that.
yeah. You know, that single price doubled, and the per ticket price, I mean, the 4 went up to 5. Well, if you double it, it's 4. So, minor thing bothered me. And then on the itinerant sales permit, does that cover food trucks too, or?
This is your door-to-door salesman.
Okay.
Magazine salesman and things like that,
It still bothers me, $25 a day up to 200.
the main reason the chief proposed that was that the door-to-door salesmen are who they get the most calls from people being annoyed by them and wanted to make it a little less easy, because those are normally people from out of town, they come in a busload and they canvass the town. That's where they get the most calls from people being wary about people knocking on their doors. So that was the thought process behind that. And now, like I said, on the ride ticket prices, we really struggled with that because, we don't expect to make money on the rides, because it's a very much a community enmity, but we wanted to, I don't know what the right answer is there, to be
Yeah,
honest with you, Mark.
I was okay with them being raised, because I understand that, I mean, the maintenance on that old equipment and stuff, and the wages went up and all. I'm not arguing against the raises, just that one little one. You said it's a little niggly thing, but if you double it like all the rest, then it would be 4 instead of 5.
Four for $4 instead of the $4
Yeah,
for $5.
I mean, I know it's kind of.
Mayor Killer?
Go ahead.
I join in with Mark Woods on, Councilman Woods. You go out there, and I don't think people realize, the kids out there, there's some of these families are more strapped than you think. And, even a 75-cent ticket, I think there's 5 rides out there, isn't there right now?
Correct.
You make it 4 rides for 5. Unless this is a big strain on the budget, this is for kids. And there's a lot of families in town, quite frankly, that, it's a little bit of a stress, you got 3 or 4 kids and go out and ride. I guess what I'm saying, I'd like to see it stay the same, but, I understand, but, I know that the thrift center, we donate, I think it's a day, we're raised that to a day and a half now. You get free rides for the kids, and we're told that's those free ride days are the only times some of these kids get to ride the rides. So
Well, I'm like you. I would like to see it not go up at all, but I get it,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
I would just like to see it not go up at all. And I understand that you guys, you have to, if it's not a budget buster, I'd honestly say, let's keep that as cheap as possible.
Is that a motion?
I would move that we, keep the ride prices at Cody Park, the kiddie rides, the same.
Second.
Talk about the 75 cents and $2.
That first column is what they are currently.
Yeah, right here.
So you mean,
You're right there.
just for the sake of clarity, you mean the same as the current
The
rates?
current rate, I'm
Okay.
sorry, Mayor.
Motion by Nisley, second by Lucas. Any further discussion on adjusting the user fees to leave the ride ticket prices the same as they are at this particular moment for next year?
I'm gonna visit on, and I'm not opposed to this.
Yeah,
I'm really not, because it's all about the kids. But the one thing we have to keep in mind as we just finished up a budget cycle, and we have X amount of places to get money from. And I'm going to exclude the kiddie rides in here. But user fees, sales tax, property tax. So you look at our pie that we showed, and we have sanitation in that. You know, our pie is pretty well divided up into big slices and little slices. Kearney's budget came out, and we always hear that Kearney's property tax is exorbitantly low, you know, and there's a reason why it is. And this is just one thing I want to point out. User fees are a use by an individual. So we have to protect that if we want our property tax levy to go down, you know. So it's just a overarching view of this. We need X amount of dollars, and we've proven that. Our department heads have done a phenomenal job of being extremely conservative with our budget, but we do have to allow them to have X amount of dollars. And how we get those X amount of dollars has to come partially from user fees. So we as a council have to decide, do we want them more to come from sales tax? Do we want it to come from property tax? Do we want it to come from electric fees? Do we want it to come from sanitation or user fees? So every time we get to a user fee thing, we kind of nickel and dime, and this isn't going to kill us. But I would love the council to just have that big picture view of where we're driving this bus as we go along in our discussions. And that's all I have. I don't have a problem with the kids' fees, because I go out there and I see, you know, we pay minimum wage has gone up, and you have the rides well stocked. I take my grandkids out there all the time. Cody Park is a hidden gem. It's phenomenal, and we need to advertise it. And, you know, maybe we have businesses subsidize. I'd be willing to do that, you know, to help out, do a kids' day at the park. And I know that some businesses have done that, and, you know, we would totally be worth doing that in the future. So that's all I have on that. Just a big picture on fees and taxes. So thank you.
Mr. Woods? I like the way you stated it. I'm a fan of user fees because I don't like paying for things that I don't use, and I don't want coming out of my pocket.
No.
This is one thing though that I'd be happy to shift over to sales tax though.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, that
Oh, sorry, Donna, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm just thinking when Pete was talking about comparing property tax with Kearney, I don't know, I guess I would like to know a comparison on philanthropy in Kearney versus North Platte, because I think there's a big difference. People just don't look at that the way people do in Kearney. So if we could maybe promote that in this community to something like the parks, that'd be great.
Just to touch on that, that's a great point. But as the articles came out in the paper, I sent it to Lane because there was a big article about Kearney's taxes, and user fees was the biggest chunk of their pie. I meant to say that when I was going through my diatribe there, but I didn't. But user fees was the biggest chunk of Kearney's pie for where they get their revenue from. So their taxes are lower because they are utilizing their user fees very well to their benefit, evidently.
They
So,
higher,
much higher than
much
ours.
higher than ours.
Yeah, what was it, 35%, I think?
Something like that.
I think it was like 35% of their revenue comes from user fees, where ours was down at 12%. So it's a big chunk. It's a big chunk.
And they've done that over about a 30-year period where they've done the flop from property taxes over to that and switch. But that's just different ways that different cities do things. So for
Yep.
sure.
So thank you.
Mr. Lucas.
If I've got my banking hat on, I would tell you that quarters and things are becoming more lost and more people are starting to see coins as more expendable. And it might be a compromise too to consider taking 75 cents to $1 instead of $1.50. That would maybe still be in the spirit of Mr. Nisley's intent, which I agree with, but it may be functionally easier and give us a little bit of a compromise on this.
I'll be honest with you, I think there's 5 rides out there. I'd like to see 5 rides for $5. I guess that would do that if you do one, or, we'll give them a little bit of a break though on the 5 rides. That's, if we're gonna raise it up, I'd give them a little bit of break on the.
And you all know, one of the things you approved this last year was some New Bern funds to go towards some new rides that we're still working on finding the right ones to add out there. So we hope in the next year or two to go from 5 rides to 7 or 8 rides, which would change some things and hopefully increase some ridership. But I will tell you that Lyle and I talked about this in great depth, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just one of the things I told the department heads to look at all the different things. And so I guess I don't have, we could do some more in-depth study on it, or because there's always that breaking point where all of a sudden, if it gets too much, nobody uses it. If we leave them the same and then look at it a little more, closer over the next year, if you'd want, or.
I'd like to see it at 75 cents. I understand what you're saying, but, and we can address it next year,
Yeah.
If that's okay, I mean,
Then you got that quarter to go feed the geese.
it's right.
Yo.
Just saying.
Enough of those quarters to buy some ice cream.
You know what? I've done that a lot of times.
Absolutely.
Do we make money on that?
And I'll be honest, those animal feeders actually do bring in a pretty
Mm-hmm.
nice little sum of money to feed the animals. So
None of the animals appear to be starving out there, so that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. So. Okay, any other questions or comments on the motion, which is to leave the ticket prices as they set today? Calling the question on the motion, please. Motion is passed. Okay,
Oh, go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
thank you. I'd like to weigh on the itinerant sales permit.
Would you mind if I had Chief Reeves offer his perspective real quick?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, since he walked in. We've had a little bit of discussion about the itinerant sales permit. And Lane kind of briefly described what the need was. Would you elaborate a little bit, please?
I didn't mean to mark.
Yeah, I'll be real blunt. I wish we'd do away with the ordinance and not allow itinerant sales. Nobody likes itinerant sales. Every time we approve one of those permits and they start out into our neighborhoods, it's call after call after call. And the last time we chased them around until we finally arrested about 4 of them, they come in droves. When they come, it's rare that we even have them anymore. So it's the police chief's method to try to discourage them as long as we're going to have the ordinance on the books. Nobody is trustful of anybody that goes door to door, and I don't care. They could be the greatest people in the whole world. They'll call the police.
Beer killer.
Let me give Ed the preference here since he started to speak there. So
I respect what you're saying. I don't agree with it. That's part of our American heritage. The freedom that we have, in my opinion, shouldn't be impinged just because they're one or two bad actors. I don't think we should do that. It just rubs me the wrong way, I guess, that we're going to lock out a group of people because one or two people called the police department, or half a dozen people called the police department,
Or 40.
or 40.
I mean, it really,
And
I'd
I'm not
encourage you
making.
to ask some people in your ward. I really don't think most people are going to tell you that they want to come knocking at the door.
Then don't go to the door. Tell them to go away. I mean, it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like the do not call list for people that make a living making sales calls on the telephone, and now we have a list to prevent them from making a living. In my opinion, that goes against the grain of our American heritage. And I don't like it. I don't like it, and I will not vote for it. And I would like to see us go back to the $25 a day and possibly even eliminate it. Thank you.
Mr. Nisley?
I just wanted to make a point. I think Chief Reese, I think the problem is you can't outlaw it. I think there's a Supreme Court case, or there used to be, saying that they have a constitutional right to do door-to-door sales. Now haven't checked that law recently, but I think there is a U.S. Supreme Court case on that. But I think we do have a right to regulate it. I think it, and it does cause a lot of consternation. And people are home and it's probably legal, but people are home watching TV, they're changing the kids' diapers, and ding, the doorbells ring, and it's a salesman there. Well, they didn't ask for it. At least if you see an advertisement or you do on the internet, you're asking for the sale. But having said that's my personal feeling. I think there may be a legal right to it, and I think you're right on that. But I think there ought to be I think we have a right to regulate it. And if it's causing a problem with the police, then it's causing a problem for the taxpayers. Yeah, then we run into that issue.
I just wanted to point out too that we have the hawkers and peddlers, so that it kind of takes those sweet corn dealers and all the people that set up shop and you go to them. This itinerant sales specifically covers door-to-door sales.
Yeah, okay.
Chief,
Hold on a
where you
second.
go?
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Mr. Woods, that's fine. You might as well just stand there, Steve. We're good.
I brought this up because one time when I used to own a store, I had a guy come by and he goes, "Hey, I sell furniture. I bring in a truckload, semi. Could I set up in your lot, and sell out of your lot?" And I said, "Well, sure. You'll bring in more business. Maybe I'll get something out of it." Well, and it caused quite an uproar. You'd think that I'd commit a murder or something. So it's something, well, let's say one furniture store got really, really upset. And it was on the council agenda next meeting. And I'm sure the rate went up. But is somebody like that covered? I mean, would they be under this? Because they are itinerant, because they're going from town to town, but they didn't do door to door. I mean, they just set up my
It says
lot.
door to door, doesn't it? Or it says residential.
Yeah, I believe it says something more about like the door to door, and I think the situation Mark's talking about seems more like the hawker and peddler type definition.
And they have to get a license,
They
right,
don't-
to do
they
something
don't.
like
I
that.
think we had some in place at one time, if I remember right, and there was some hoopla about sweet corn. And then I think it got readdressed, and we don't have to have anything for that kind of stuff. So you set up on somebody's property, you pay them so much a day, or they let you for free, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be, but you go to them when you see their storefront open, I guess. But this is going door to door, knocking on doors. And it has a time requirement in it that's a problem. It has trouble with the backgrounds. It has trouble with ID. It's just, I guess, some of them are kind of shady. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, sure, probably some of them are.
And we don't have as much trouble with it. And I think that's just the advent of the internet. People are just marketing different ways. So door to door is not all that popular anyway, but it still happens sometimes. And every time it happens, we have conditioned people to call us. They're distrustful.
I just,
Thank you.
Thinking about where that line gets drawn. I mean, I'm thinking about my 4 football coupon books that are in my drawer right now, where I need to go to Dave's place about 9 times to get full. And I'm thinking about somebody running for city council who's knocking on doors in their ward.
Gotta be selling something though.
Okay.
Take a little kid with you.
Okay. So
Been doing
how
that.
does kids doing fundraising work in that? Is that just a non-enforcement issue, or
Yes.
okay? So that's not perfect either in all this, because you're starting to.
Well, now that you brought it up, do you get calls about kids doing fundraising?
Only a bunch of people that pull up with out-of-state plates and saturate the neighborhood, and instantly they're all over us.
But with that point, they might choose to enforce somebody going 32 miles an hour in a 25 versus 26 in a 30 in a 25. So I didn't mean to rub that the wrong way there with the difference between those two situations, but okay.
Ed?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move that we leave the itinerant sales permit fee at $25 per day.
I'll second.
Hold on, I gotta make my motion here.
What page is that on, Ed? You
On 81.
81, yeah, 81. Right above Public Transit Department.
Did you second that, Mr. Woods? Okay. Motion by Reeker, second by Woods. Further discussion on leaving the itinerant sales fee the same at $25 per day.
Just one thing as I'm thinking about the cost of doing business, okay? They're not paying rent. Don't know if they're paying sales tax or where the sales tax is being collected at, depending on what they're selling, I guess. So now, rent at $200 a day is a lot of money. It's a lot more than I pay for rent on Jeffers, but still, it's cost of doing business, free market society. If it's not worth it to them, then they don't come to North Platte. But if it is still worth it to them, they'll continue to do business here. So that's all I was thinking about, cost of doing business for them.
Chief, just curious, when you get a lot of calls for a group presenting themselves in this manner, has that group typically come in and paid the fee?
Yes.
Okay.
Not always, but the last one, the stuck in my head did, and then 3 of them left with tickets, and they finally passed. Packed up and left before the night was over.
Okay. I was just curious if they typically paid it or if they just
I
appeared.
would say not always, but some do.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Woods?
I have a-
Hold on, Steve.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are you allowed to turn down their application? Like if somebody who's been here before and you've had problems with them, I mean, can you legally deny them?
Had discussions about that with various city attorneys. I don't know that I've asked this one, but we've gotten various reviews. I can tell you that we have. No one's told us that we couldn't. It kind of depends on why. So yeah, to your example, it's more they've been a problem in the past. If they come in, we run some background checks on them, but the jury's kind of out on whether, they've been convicted of theft 6 times. Can I still send them out and give it a shot in your neighborhood? And we've denied them, but if somebody took us to task, maybe the courts would feel differently. I don't know.
Chief, when this happens, I mean, are we dealing with 2 or 3 officers dealing with it, or is it one officer? How
Yeah,
is this
because
gonna work?
usually they'll try to, where they think they can market their product, and they try to spread out so that they can cover as much territory as they can in a
So
short
you may
amount of
have 3
time,
officers
so
involved in trying
we'll
to,
just start getting calls from different areas of town. try to spot them.
How much time do you think goes into responding to those? From the time all the calls come in to the officers going out, how much time?
I'm gonna say the last one, I'll bet you we had 15 calls in an afternoon between 2 and 8, and here's what people don't like. They call in and they say, I don't like it, and we offer them Ed's opinion and say they did what they had to do. We had to let them solicit in your neighborhood. Then we get yelled at, but it is what it is. But then they kept going into the wee hours of the night, and that's when we start handing out tickets. They didn't quit at the time expiration.
So the tickets were issued because they were past the time they were allowed to be selling.
And a lot of times they'll just try to push their luck because they don't intend to be here too long anyway. So they'll try to blast neighborhoods as late as they can, and then they'll hope they can dodge us and get in the car and go to the next community.
Mr. Woods?
What's the fine on the ticket?
I don't know that it has a preset one, so it would fall under the generic, and it's up to the judge at that point, so.
We could possibly just raise the fine to get the money.
The fines are generally defined under separate ordinances as to what applies if a specific amount isn't listed. So I don't know that off the top of my head, but it could be anywhere from $50 to $200. But to Chief Reeves's point, one of the problems I've run into with these types of tickets is that even if they do get served with a ticket, they don't show up in court because they've moved on to the next community, and then we have additional judicial resources and city staff time on my end that's taken to deal with the failure to appears, and you're pulling in the county attorney's office, and so it leads to a lot of additional work for other entities that really kind of drags down and bogs us down with additional work that certainly we could devote that time to other projects, but we're left with trying to track them down because they were issued a ticket for legitimately violating the ordinance. And so that's just my 2 cents.
Let's see.
Steve, how many, in the last 24 months, how many times have we had these groups visit where you've received complaints?
I don't know. I could tell. I mean, I could.
Would you say it's more than 4 times?
Probably. It used to be much more frequent than it is now. So, I mean, quite honestly, you can kick it around and do what you want to do. We'll deal with it, but it's not popular. Based on the amount of calls that we get on that kind of thing, I'm going to say that it's not popular with the majority of the residential customer.
Other questions before Steve sits down again?
I guess I have one. As I'm sitting here thinking about it. So when a group comes in or a person comes in to get a permit, is it possible, I guess, to say we're discouraging door to door, but if you want to set up at a vacant lot with permission or whatever and sell your whatever, could you influence?
We generally forewarn them that we don't think they're going to have the best of luck going door to door just based on past experience, but it generally doesn't dissuade them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to leave the itinerant sales at fee at $25 per day, which is what it is today. That was your motion, right, Ed? Okay.
One point of clarification, I guess.
Okay.
Is that $25 per salesman that's walking the neighborhood? Is that $25 per group?
It's the group.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on the amendment?
I'd just like to say that I hate to put the extra work on you, Chief, but I kind of feel along the same line as Ed that, it is the right to do business and all that. I know lots of things in this life annoy me. I mean, come on, we have people annoy us all the time. I just had the nicest mother and little boy come to my door the other night and wanted to paint paws on my driveway for $25. And, you know, I was just gonna eat, and I politely said no, because I don't want paint on my driveway. It was a fundraiser, you know, nice thing and all that for a trip, but then I shut the door, and you know, that's it. I mean, that's all you have to do is put up your hand and say, no, I'm not interested. Have a good night, and shut your door. You know, it doesn't have to be a problem. It's kind of your own fault, I guess, if you're gonna call the police. But so, yeah, I'll be voting yes for the amendment.
Other questions or comments on the proposed amendment?
Mayor, real quick.
Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, you know, as I think through this, and it is a pretty interesting question. It's good for us to dive into these things. It's important. It affects people. I think the chief's asking us for the hammer to use when he needs it. I don't think he's asking us to shut down what goes on in normal daily life. So that's the way I'm interpreting this.
Okay, other questions or comments? Calling the question on the proposed amendment to leave the itinerant sales at $25 per day, which is the current fee per organization, just for the sake of clarity.
I'm sorry to clarify. I'm voting on Ed's amendment to leave it the same.
Yes, if you vote yes, you're voting in favor of leaving it the same. Okay. So I guess the amendment fails. Yes. Okay. All right. Now we're back to the user fees as they're set today. Or as they're proposed today, excuse me. With the motion that the ticket prices for Cody Park would be the same as they set today, would remain the same.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Reeker.
I move that we adopt a fee structure as presented and modified with the amendments.
Okay, we already have a motion, but I appreciate that on the
just
table. So
practice.
thank you very much. If anyone has any further items they would like to discuss under item number 6, now would be the time to do it in the way of proposing amendment or making a statement. Mr. Woods.
I have one other thing.
Okay.
And it's along the same lines as Ty's, and it's about the rec center with all the construction that's going to be going on and all that. I know we're going to try to keep everything open, but I can't believe that it's not going to be as good a service as it should be. So I just questioned, you know, as I was reading it, whether it was a good time to raise the fees. I know we need the money, but you know, something to think about. I'm not going to make an amendment to change it at all. I just don't know that it's a good idea to do it.
I know on part of the construction is to try and leave as much open as we can and have the other part being built, and then some new will open, some old will be gone, and so we're hoping to actually enhance for the most part, but there will be some, you know, it will be some adversity there and things, and this is kind of what the normal has been for raising the rec center fees over time, is just slight increases. So, but I do understand what you're saying. We actually have, I think because of the excitement with what's going to be coming, we've actually had a little bit of an uptick in our use at the rec center, and also some of our memberships. I think people are excited about it and want to be a part of it again. So,
Okay.
but yeah, yes, well noted.
Any other questions or comments on item number 6 as amended? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 6 as amended, please. Item number 6 is passed as amended. You get the amendment recorded, okay? Yes. Basically, we're leaving the ride ticket prices the same. Okay, all right. Okay, item number 7. Adopt the resolution approving claims and authorizing the issuance of one warrant to Myers Construction, Inc. in the amount of $3,021.12, one warrant to Level LLC in the amount of $458,264.44, and one warrant to Simon Contractors in the amount of $538,461.75 to pay approved claims and referring to and incorporating the terms and conditions of ordinance number 3874 relating to warrant financing.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of 3 warrants as presented in the materials.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Flanders. Any discussion on item number 7? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 7. Item number 7 is passed. Item number 8, approve the claims.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the claims.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols. Calling the question on the claims. Claims are approved. Okay, we're going to go back to item number 2 on the regular agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to enter closed session for the sole purpose of discussing contract negotiations in order to protect the public's interest.
Second.
Motion by Lucas, second by Reeker to enter executive session. Calling the question on executive session. Council is now in executive session. Hello, friends of the media. Okay, let the record show, the executive session ended at 6:52 by unanimous vote. We only discussed contract negotiations. Council will now consider item number 2.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table item number 2.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to table by Reeker, second by Lucas. Calling the question on tabling the item. As we do not have a monitor, please raise your right hand if you're voting in favor of tabling the item. Let the record show that everyone has voted 7-0. So item number 2 is now tabled. Moving on to item number 3, approve the selection of Atlas Copco, Walling Company, Electric Pump, JCI Industrial, Varick Biogas, and Schwing Bioset for equipment procurement package number 1 for the industrial wastewater treatment plant, and authorize the mayor to negotiate and execute the contracts.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the selection of Atlas Copco, Walling Company, Electric Pump, JCI Industrial, Varick Biogas, and Schwing Bioset per the council packet information for equipment procurement package number 1 for the industrial wastewater treatment plant, and authorize the mayor to negotiate and execute contracts.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols. Discussion on item number 3. Seeing none, if you're in favor of item number 3, please raise your right hand to indicate so. Okay, item number 3 is passed 7-0. Mr. Reeker.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, raise your right hand. Unanimously, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Reeker, we kept you 3 more minutes. Sorry about that.